Hey everyone, it's Miles with the Seattle Coffee Gear Repair Center. Just wanted to take you through a few tips on draining and packaging the Phillips here. Now, just like other machines, this guy is very important to drain as much moisture as we can to protect the machine, the packing material, and box from any unwanted damage during transit. To start, we're going to get this guy draining. Now this will have a thermoblock opposed to a boiler. Still important to drain the machine fully to prevent from any water damage to the machine or waterlogging the box and packing material, which can allow it to fall apart in transit. All right, so first step, we turned on the machine. It did its warming up sequence, so now it's ready to go. What we're going to do, similar to the single boiler machine, is run the hot water and pull the tank until it empties all the water that's inside the machine. Press the play button. Once that's going, pull that hot water tank out. Oops, not that hard. And as you can see, there wasn't a whole lot of water in there to begin with, but the process will stop automatically once it's all done. So really the big thing is pulling that water tank to make sure it's not feeding any more water and we're all drained. All right, now that we've let the machine drain and dry out fully, we're going to get it all ready for packaging to ship out. All right, so now that we've completed draining processes for machines, really it's a waiting game on letting everything dry out so that we're not putting anything wet in the box or packaging anything that's wet at this point. But once everything's dried out, we're good to start taping things down and getting things packed up. So now that we're done with the draining processes for machines, the next step is going to be letting everything dry out fully before getting it packaged and ready to go. So I have an Apartamento here. This is one of the bigger machines we sell and service, so a good example for really how to package a heavy machine safely. Not every accessory or attachment to a machine is necessary to send in, so I would reach out beforehand to see what items might be needed, whether it's a repair or whatnot. Any additional accessories could bounce around or add just some more headaches throughout the process, so anything we can leave out of the box is ideal. For example, we have a few attachments on the Apartamento. This plastic cup rail does not need to come in for repair. If anything, this will break in transit a lot easier than a lot of other components, so I would leave this at home. Portafilter, this is one thing I would ask before sending it in. Sometimes this can be related to issues we see, specifically in repair. Sometimes it's totally unnecessary to send in. So ask ahead of time, usually not important. And the drip tray and tray grate. This is also not really essential to test the functionality of the machine. Specifically in repairs, we'll have a lot of test drip trays and grates, so this can stay at home. So now that we have everything removed that's not necessary to send in and everything else is dried out, we're good to tape down any moving parts that are left on the machine. With the Apartamento, that's not a whole lot at this point. Really, any machine, you'll want to tape down those movable points with some residue-free tape. And then the next step is to get the machine in a liner. We recommend against saran wrap. In my experience, I've seen that tight wrap of the saran wrap, if there's any sort of moisture or residue left inside, can create little lines of rust or watermarks. So we want to put the machine in some sort of liner, but nothing that's so airtight that any moisture remaining is going to cause an issue. Normally, we don't need a water tank and a lid on an Apartamento if it's coming in for repairs, but let's say this machine in particular has an issue with the water tank or pooling water from the water tank. So it's something we'll want to take a look at, something we need to include. That's when we're going to want to get some tape to make sure that doesn't shift around, the lid doesn't pop off while it's moving around in transit. So for this, just get a few strands, and this is just what we have. It's blue residue-free tape, so it's not going to leave any bad smudges or things that won't come off the machine. I'm sure you've seen some tape do, but we'll tape down both sides. And just to be safe, the other sides. So that'll be secure. We're going to obviously put this in a liner and a lot more stuff, but this just saves that lid from popping off because this is an item that we'll need for this particular machine. So in the case that there were more accessories that we can't tape down, that's when we would have some bubble wrap. We'd want to bubble wrap that fully, make sure that it can't break through the bubble wrap and make contact with the rest of the machine or any other items. But for this one, don't need any bubble wrap right now. We'll go straight into putting the machine in a liner. So I got just a plastic liner here, pretty loose. The idea, we'll sit the machine in here. Get it kind of opened up. And there's a lot of different ways you could wrap up your cord to make sure that it's not bouncing around and making scratches and whatnot in the body panel. This is generally how we do it. Just a nice little wrap around the valves. Nothing too tight to make the valves kind of start to go inward. But this is set enough to where it's not going to come out and have some trouble. But we'll get this guy, put it in the liner. Want to pull it through to make sure it's sitting at the bottom of the liner. Then we'll kind of gather it up top. See if there's a little more room to pull up. All right, now that we have the machine in a liner, we're just going to get it taped up here. So make sure that there's no like excess bag getting stuck under the machine, so it's sitting flat. We'll bunch it up top here. And again, this is kind of a loose, we're just creating a barrier between the machine and the rest of the packing material. Nothing too tight because like I said, there's residual moisture. We don't want to get that fully trapped in here. And let's say something were to leak out in transit, we'd want it to hit the bottom of the machine, where worst case scenario, it's affecting the feet only opposed to the entire machine. But based on how we drained this one, there's really not a whole lot of moisture at play. So this is just a safety measure at this point. But we'll get a little tape on here. Tape up the bunch and then tape it down. Got a nice little machine in its own environment, so it won't affect the rest of the packing material box if the worst were to happen. So now that we have our machine ready to go, get this back up here. We're going to move on to getting the box ready to go. So for these machines, you'll want to get a box that's big enough to fit the machine, packing material, so we'll be using packing peanuts. You want packing material on all sides of the machine, top, bottom, all four sides around, and enough room if you have accessories or any sort of additions, room for that safely without affecting the machine. So we have our inner box here. This taped up. Do a strand across to keep that integrity. And then I'll do another strand. All right, so now that we have our inner box, we're going to start with that first layer of peanuts. We usually recommend at least 2 inches of peanuts or packing material on the top and really the bottom as well. Just want to have that buffer on all sides so that the machine isn't shifting into any side of the box at any point in transit. So I've got one outer box, taped it up to use as a peanut dumper, makes it a little easier. One thing to keep in mind too, these peanuts are going to compress, so realistically you'll put more than 2 inches in here. You want that 2-inch buffer when the machine's weight is on top of those. So just keep in mind that these peanuts can compress a lot more than you might think, and you'll want to make sure that they're compressed when you're packing the box. So filling that void, peanuts on the top and bottom. You don't want any loose kind of air in here. So spread the peanuts out evenly. We have, I'd say, probably 3 to 4 inches in there because it's going to compress down. So we're going to want to grab the machine now and put it upright. So we don't want to put it sideways on its back. We'll want to put it feet down at the bottom. And you can see it's already compressed down quite a bit. All right, so now we'll want to fill the void on all sides. So really, this will be a process of dumping peanuts, pushing them into the void, dumping more peanuts, pushing them into the void until you feel it's full. The idea is to make sure the machine is firmly set in the box without overfilling it. So let's do that. So I'll just kind of push it in with my fingers on all sides. And you can see how much that's compressed down just on one push down. So we'll do it again. Compress some more. Obviously, you don't want to fill to the point where the box is bulging too much on any side because we're still trying to keep the integrity of the box. But as we're closer to the top, you can see that we're kind of reaching that point of filling the void. So we'll top it off. You will want to make sure that peanuts go all the way to this kind of top lip of the box. If you had any less, then those peanuts that you just stuffed in the void will pop out over the process of transit, and you'll notice that the machine will end up being on top of the peanuts when everything's said and done. Just being sure to fill that void so the machine really can't shift around once you tape the box up. And then this is the last step. Just making sure it's even. You want to push it down a little bit. Say just a little less. Make it even. See how the flaps do. So I'd say that is perfect. So get it taped up. Just like before, I'll do one across. And another strand down the way. Taping is really, it's a preference-based thing as long as you're making sure the box is packaged. A strip this way, more strips across, it really doesn't matter as long as it's secured. So at this point, if you're concerned about how you did with your packing, we call it the roll test. You can always roll your package upside down, all angles, and I can feel that this isn't moving at all. So it is firmly set where it is within the peanuts. That's what you want to make sure before we go into the next size box. So that this guy right now is not moving around inside. So the second level of protection is only going to enforce that immovability of the machine. All right, now that our inner box is all ready to go, we're going to do basically the same thing with the outer box. Make sure it's big enough to fit this inner box and packing material on all sides. Let's go for it. For the outer box, I'm going to do a few more strands of tape on the bottom just because this is what will be making contact with the ground the rest of the way out. So. All right. And just like the inner box, we're going to want to put that little amount of peanuts on the bottom. So do about 4 inches or so, maybe 5, since the sizing is a little different for the boxes compared to the machine in this box. So kind of play it by ear. Remember that it's going to compress and the goal is to fill the void. All right, so I have about 4.5 inches of peanuts on the bottom. Gonna grab our inner box and firmly set it in the center. We'll want to keep the orientation matching that of the machine. So currently it's in feet down. We'll want to put it the same way where the feet are still down while it's in that outer box. So not a whole lot of clearance on the sides of this box, but enough for that packing material, as I mentioned. So want to make sure it's firmly set and fill the void. As you can see, I'm pushing peanuts down every time I dump peanuts in, so there should never be peanuts that are not compressed, right? So make sure everything is providing that secured, nothing's rolling around, nothing's shaking around. And if we really wanted to, we could do a roll test with the big box, but I think we already proved with the inner box that we're good to go. All right, so we're pretty set on all sides. Gonna do that top of the box now. And almost out of peanuts, I'm sure you've seen. Takes a decent amount of packing materials to do the full process, but considering the investment that this espresso machine is, it's not a whole lot to go through to make sure it gets where it needs to go safely. We'll get some more peanuts. All right, so even it out, make sure we're reaching that lip there. Don't want to overfill the box, but you don't want to underfill it to where things are shifting around. See, as we get the flaps down, that's perfect. Get those flaps even. Get that tape going. Just like the bottom, I'm going to put some extra tape on the top just to make sure nothing comes apart. All right. So we are all boxed up. The next step is to get our documentation we need on the outside. So if you remember, This box helps me out because it already has a fragile this side up little stamp on it. If you don't have these, it's important to have stickers letting the carrier know which side is up and that it's fragile. I also have some heavy stickers that I'll be putting on here in just a moment. So just to show you, I have some stickers. So this is kind of a 2-in-1, fragile and this side up. Sometimes it'll only say fragile, sometimes it'll only say this side up. Both are important, so we have a 2-in-1. The goal is to put a sticker on each face of the machine, except for the one facing the ground, obviously. So we'll start with one on the top, and then one on each side. So we got our this side up and fragile sticker on all 4 sides of the box and the top. And then we'll do the same thing with these heavy stickers. And as you can see, it says, gives you a little room to write how much it weighs, which is nice, gives the carrier an idea of what they're getting themselves into when they pick one of these up. I'll get 3 stickers generally, put one on the top, and then I'll kind of bend it around the corner of the opposing sides so it's still on all faces, like that. One on the top. So I have a blank shipping label. Obviously yours will have the information needed to get it here to us, but this is just for reference. We'll want to put attention miles on the label. Previously, putting attention repair implies that the contents are already damaged or might be broken and have led to some mistreatment. So putting attention miles will hopefully take away some of the possibility of mistreatment due to what might be inside. So take this guy off, put it on the top, and you can either type it out. I'm just gonna write it on here. So ATTN:miles, that'll obviously get it to me, helps with sorting, and not putting repair on there will hopefully keep it a little safer in transit. So everything's boxed up. We're ready to go take this in and get it shipped out. Obviously, I did it in my space here. If you don't have these materials, it's always good to utilize a store, a packing center. Just be sure to document as much as you can, taking pictures of the condition of the machine and material before sending it out kind of helps in case something bad happens in transit. And also ensuring your merchandise with the carrier is very important if you plan on pursuing a damage claim or, just holding them accountable to what might happen in transit. Great idea to use their services, but be sure to hold them accountable during that process. Well, that about wraps everything up. The goal here was just to go over some draining and packing tips that we're comfortable with and have seen good results since we've been doing this. If you have any questions or concerns relating to this, please feel free to reach out over the phone or online. The goal is to have you be comfortable with what you're sending in before it's sent in. But yeah, thanks for tuning in and thanks for choosing Seattle Coffee Gear.